get started in 3, 2, 1, and welcome everybody to CBM Voice Chat. I'm your host Neophant, and with me as always are my two lovely and special co-hosts, all hopefully staying safe and taking care of themselves during this crazy pandemic times. We've got AngryBlackManta.
Yo yo.
And we've got Hank.
You can't say that word or else we're going to be demonetized. You're going to lose the monetization you don't have.
What?
You can't say the words like I just did or in your video or else you lose monetization.
Okay, that's actually okay. We've never been monetized. You know why? Because
because you said the words you can't say. That's why.
That too, probably. But even if you hadn't said those words, we would still not be monetized because of our opening and closing songs. And
I want you to censor what I just said with hentai screams.
Oh no. Okay.
No.
Sounds good. So this is episode 32 of CBM Voice Chat, and right now we're kind of at a time where there's not much happening in the news apart from the current coronavirus, and I gotta censor that eventually too, pandemic, and basically everything is shut down. Hollywood isn't doing much filming. Comic books are currently not coming out until hopefully in a couple of weeks, and TV shows, while they're still airing, are probably going to be delayed at some point while filming will eventually resume. So I wanted to ask you guys, what have you guys been doing in terms of reading, watching, or doing whatever during these past few months? I'll start with you, Manta.
I've been doing a lot of reading, like at work. I'm seriously, I've read like 10 different comic book series. But out of the top 3, I would say would be Deathstroke Rebirth, Daredevil 2019, and I don't know. Titans has been pretty good. Flash was decent.
Okay, I wanted to ask you about Deathstroke actually. I'm assuming you're referring to the Rebirth Christopher Priest run?
Yeah, Deathstroke Rebirth.
Deathstroke Rebirth. Can you kind of give us a few thoughts on the series as a whole? Like, what do you like about it? Because I've been reading it as one while I kind of stopped around issue 30 something. I definitely enjoyed it.
Well, just like with anything that Priest does, it's very intelligent. It's very well thought through. And like in regards to just like, well, I guess just all around, his powers, like they go into his powers a bit, like just like the whole myth of the whole, well, I guess actually that was one thing that bothered me, is that he subscribed to the whole myth of, using 90% of your brain or whatever. Mm-hmm. But besides that, it's just really clever. It's just really well done. It treats Deathstroke as a person, as a very complicated guy. Like he just doesn't know how to act like a normal human being. He doesn't know how to express himself, except through violence, which I really thought was cool. And it, like, it really goes into his relationship with his kids, both the really messed up things that he does to them, as well as I guess just all around, whether he's trying to protect them or whether he's trying to teach them a lesson. Everything he does is just like the wrong way to approach it. Like sleeping with your son's fiance, to prove that she's a mole or a spy, is probably the wrong way to go about it. But yeah, I don't think I've ever read a Deathstroke series, so I don't know how it compares to the others. But it's one of my favorite series in recent memory.
Okay. I definitely get the vibe that there's a dysfunctional family dynamic going on with Deathstroke, especially between his son, his daughter Rose, his ex-wife is a major player in the series, and there's definitely all these twists and turns over who is actually helping out who and who's actually betraying who. And it's definitely one of those interesting series that gives you a lot of things to think about while also basically playing in the DC universe from a different angle, because it's more about kind of like a villain's perspective on how things go down, and especially for Deathstroke, who's a mercenary. He's one of those characters who doesn't necessarily have any solid allegiances.
Yeah, So I mean, like a small spoiler alert for you. But in the issue that I just read, he's in Gotham City and he kills an old lady. He murders an old lady because there's a contract on her, and then he and Rose are trying to figure out. He has some, I don't know, I wouldn't say doubts, maybe a little bit of doubt about whether he should have killed her or not. And it just turns out that she didn't do anything wrong. She was just a test to see for someone, a future client, to see if he would actually go through with any contract that he was given. And you can see that it kind of bothers him a little bit.
Oh, wow.
So it's really just interesting.
That is pretty messed up. Hank, I wanted to bring the topic onto you. What comic books have you been reading for the last couple of months?
I'm trying to, because for the first portion of the quarantine, and a lot of what still is I'm more focusing on the creative aspect. So a lot of the reading I do is a lot of reading for inspiration. And so lately I've tried to improve my drawing and other stuff. So basically the art style that I really tried to do was a Grey Capullo. So I ended up rereading the Scott Snyder run on Batman, which I think still holds up, but not as well as it did when I first read it. And part of it is because what?
I'm curious to ask why. Yeah, what changed?
Well, part of it was like when I first read it, I believe I was like still in high school, and since then I've taken, I went to college and took a lot of like courses in storytelling and a lot of other stuff and other things. And basically, you guys ever notice that Death of the Family and Endgame are kind of the same story?
I've never actually read Death of the Family through
all the one where
all
Joker basically takes down every single member of the Bat family,
breaks down the members of the Bat family in a way to mess with Batman on the most psychological way he can. There is a scene involving him being super creepy to Jim Gordon. They go to fight. Batman gathers his allies or like stuff like that to fight the Joker after like the Joker also knocks him out at some point. Mm-hmm. And he blacks him out, and he does that. But then something happened and Batman leaves his sidekicks to a certain battle, to which Joker fucking gasses them. And then Batman and Joker have a final fight in the cave. Mm-hmm. Where and the fight both times ends with Batman like using Joker's psychology tricks on him. So I don't know, they're much more similar than I realized the first time I read, because the first time I read, I'm like, oh, this is just awesome, and then I was just like, wow, these are kind of similar.
Okay. Oh wait,
but then I got the Dark Knight's Metal and I didn't care.
You're referring to Endgame as the Marvel movie or the last arc of one of the last arcs of Batman?
The one right before Super Heavy.
Yeah. Oh yeah.
The Batman arc. Yeah.
Yeah, it's the one with Batman and Joker. They're fighting
the one
each
where,
other.
like,
they end up in a cave.
Yeah, it starts with Joker infecting the Justice League, and then like Joker's like shtick that whole time as he's trying to convince Batman that he was basically immortal and that he's been there throughout like all of history. Mm-hmm. Some kind of boogeyman. Booga booga.
Definitely some similarities there. Okay. As for myself, one of the first things I've been doing while I haven't been picking up any new comics because of the quarantine, right? So I've been actually going into my long boxes and actually just kind of bagging and boarding and reorganizing all of my books. And when I went to the B's after bagging and boarding pretty much everything before it, I happened upon my old copies of the Booster Gold comic by Jeff Johns, Dan Jurgens, and Norm Rapmund. And later on, Jeff Johns left the book, so it was Dan Jurgens writing and doing most of the drawing. And it's this really cool story where Booster Gold basically becomes the hero that nobody actually knows, or he's the legend that can never really talk about what he does, because he's essentially being tasked by Rip Hunter to go back in time and basically fix problems in the DC timeline in ways that no one can really ever know about it because of how that could influence the timeline later on. So essentially, if you've ever watched the CW show Legends of Tomorrow, I've always thought the show itself was an inspiration, came from the Booster Gold comic, because essentially it's another group of heroes who do the same thing and go back in time and fix problems and time paradoxes to the point where things get resolved. But because they're essentially not like major superheroes, they're considered expendables, but they become legends. And that's kind of what Booster Gold is all about too. I don't know have you guys ever read Booster Gold?
I have not.
Someone pointed out to me though that Jeff Johns is basically just DC's duct tape. Whenever something goes wrong or whatever, he comes in and he creates some sort of time thingy or whatever, and he basically has to repair. He basically spends most of his time repairing things like Green Lantern, Flash, Flashpoint Paradox, New 52.
Yeah,
it's just like his main job.
The New 52 time. So there's a lot of crazy issues. The one that kind of strikes onto my mind is Booster Gold only has one hero who knows what he's doing, and that's Batman. And the reason why Batman knows is because there's a whole arc.
Batman.
No, there's a whole arc where Booster Gold tries to prevent Barbara Gordon's crippling from the Joker in the book The Killing Joke. So Booster Gold goes back in time and constantly tries to take out the Joker, but every time he loses, the Joker basically like takes pictures of a bloodied and almost dead Booster Gold before he goes back in time and tries to do that again. And then eventually Batman finds out that Booster Gold was trying to help Barbara that entire time. And I thought that was pretty cool.
That's kind of cool.
We'll go back to you, man. So you said you mentioned 10 things that you read, and you've already mentioned Deathstroke, Flash, and Titans. Are there any other Rebirth titles that you've been currently catching up on?
So I started with Green Arrow. I stopped about 20 issues in. I can't even really remember why. Then I read Hal Jordan and the Green Lanterns. I really like that one.
Mm-hmm. Is that the Robert Venditti book?
Yeah, Vendetti's awesome.
Yeah, Vendetti's great, actually. No, I have the entire run. It's great.
Hawkman. That's one of my top titles. Another Venditti, whatever. Another Venditti series. Which I would say that was one of my top 3 for the recent titles. And then I've been reading The Flash, Justice League, the Terrifics. That's also great.
Yep, Terrifics is really good. Terrifics is the one with Mr. Terrific. It's kind of like a Fantastic Four pastiche. You've got Mr. Terrific as Mr. Fantastic. You've got Metamorpho as a thing. You've got Plastic Man also kind of like as a thing, but also kind of like a Johnny Storm like Playboy type. And you've got Phantom Lady or Phantom Girl, who's kind of like the Invisible Lady.
Yep.
Nice.
It's a fantastic title. It's basically just like you said, Fantastic Four. But I've never really. I like the Fantastic Four, but I've never really gotten into any of their runs. To me, for the Fantastic Four, like it's fun to read a couple of issues, but I've never been invested in like a run. But with the Terrifics, it's really just I don't know. I think it just connected with me better. I'm a big fan of Mr. Terrific. Maybe that's it.
Do you remember the first arc, how the Terrifics kind of go hopping through parallel dimensions and they meet Tom Strong? Have you ever heard of Tom Strong before?
I hadn't.
Okay, so Tom Strong is actually an Alan Moore creation. Back when Alan Moore was kind of doing his own imprint of comics called ABC Books, he created a character called Tom Strong who was this Doc Savage-like pulp hero. And he essentially was from the future. He ate this certain plant that gave him near immortality or would age very slowly. And basically over the years throughout like human history, he was kind of like a Mr. Fantastic of his time. And he had a whole family. And it was pretty cool that after Wildstorm, because Wildstorm owned ABC Comics at the time, and then later Wildstorm got bought out by DC. So essentially DC had at that point owned all the characters that Alan Moore had created during that time for ABC Books.
Yeah.
So it wasn't until they had never been used in a DC book until probably really recently with Tom Strong in the Terrifics and also Promethea in the Justice League of America book. But I don't know if you've happened to have read that one too. But I just thought that was interesting because I actually have a lot of those older books that Alan Moore wrote, and it was pretty cool seeing them again in DC Comics. Even though I'm sure that Alan Moore would probably be pissed with the way the other writers are using his characters.
Yeah, I just don't care though, because I'm not a huge fan of Alan Moore. I'm not a huge fan of him. But I'm not a fan of seeing like.
Well, that's just because his work's too deep for you.
Oh yeah, yep. that's totally it. Yeah, like I'm not a fan of seeing the Watchmen characters in DC. But I did like the addition of Tom Strong and his family. They worked really well with the Terrifics, so I didn't mind that. That's what reminded me. I also read Justice League of America.
Oh, you are. Oh, so you are reading that book too.
Yeah. There's too many Justice Leagues, honestly. I mean, it's just a bit ridiculous, but Yep.
Okay. Hank, how about you? What was the next thing that you had read apart from?
Well, actually, I just remembered that it didn't occur to me because like I stopped reading it for I forget like what the reason was, but I just haven't gone back to it. But I actually started reading Spawn from issue 1. And it's a bit rocky.
How do you mean?
Because you read it and you can like very clearly tell that it's an artist who had an idea but doesn't know how to like convey it with dignity.
So Brian Hitch?
Well, like part of it is I'm just like this storyline is cool, but like it's basically because I had this problem when I was making comics at a younger age, is that I would just have these pages of just paragraphs of dialogue and exposition that a character is saying, and it would just go on and on. And if like you read some of the earlier issues, like he'll have like Malbosia come up, and he will just have mountains of text that he will be saying.
Sounds like a Christopher Paolini book, the Aragon series.
I wouldn't read, but I think the last issue I read was I think it was issue 10, or it was like issue 11. Well, basically it's this. So what also makes it a bit rocky is McFarlane goes through like 2 arcs, and then he hands it off to like guest writers. And the guest writers do not keep any continuity with what has been happening like beforehand. Like, so basically he has like, Alan Moore comes in, which we know you're a big fan of, and then like Frank Miller comes in. But the one I was reading it was about Spawn's place in the metaverse, and they were like bringing him because he was different, because he was part of an, at the time, an independent comic studio. So there was something different about him, and that he was not like bound by the restraints of like the greater metaverse, and it's really kind of weird. And fucking like Superman shows up in it too. Like,
whoa,
they don't flat out say it's Superman, but it's Superman. Like, it's obviously Superman, but like he shows up, and like there's all these Marvel and DC characters in cages and like stuff like that, and it's weird. It's weird. It's kind of profound, but also it's just like the whole time you're reading, you're just like, that's fucking Superman. That's Superman drawn in a gritty 90s art style.
So what was Spawn like in those early issues? What kind of character was he? What was the tone?
Angry.
Very angry?
He's angry and dramatic.
Sounds like a lot of 90s comic books.
Well, it is pure concentrated 90s just injected into your neck when you start reading it. Like, part of it is like, because I watched like the HBO series before I read the comics, and the HBO series handles it with a lot more grace than the comics do, because like because when Spawn first shows up, it's very much a look how badass my character is issue sort of thing, and then like as it goes on, it starts to really like build up and establish like how much of a tortured soul he is, which would eventually become what Spawn is. But like, you can see it forming as you're reading it, but it's not there yet, and so that kind of adds to the rockiness of reading it.
That's interesting, actually. Yeah, because of Spawn essentially being this very angry demon hell spawn from hell type of character, but his body, or no, his soul is of the soldier who basically lost everything, including his life. And then I don't know if you can kind of give us a glimpse of what Spawn is like, but can you kind of explain why the series has lasted for so long as it has?
Have you fucking looked at him?
It's
because he's a cool looking character.
Yeah.
Everything about him is just, oh my god, this is so fucking cool. It's Venom with a cape and guns. That's it. I don't need to say anything else.
Basically.
No, it's satanic Venom with a cape and guns.
And by any chance, have you read any of the early issues with Greg Capullo's art on them?
I actually haven't gotten to Greg Capullo's art yet.
Okay.
Right now, it's pure Todd McFarlane.
Nice. As for myself, one of the books that I've been meaning to catch up on, this was a series that I've actually have digital on Comixology, but have been meaning to finish it for the longest time, is the original Silver Age Doom Patrol by Arnold Drake. And I'm trying to remember who the artist was. I can probably just look it up. But Doom Patrol, like those early comics, were pretty hilarious. You have characters like Animal, Mineral, Vegetable Man. You've got Dr. Time, who has a clock for a face and a head, and he just basically has a gun that slows down time within like a concentrated area, which is pretty hilarious. You have, of course, the first appearances.
How the fuck does that work? Mm-hmm. He pulls the trigger, and then what he's pointing at slows down.
Yeah,
or...
whatever he's pointing at slows down. It's like a
what's
radio
the range on it?
Shape. It's a pretty short range. That's why it was just so interesting. They visualize it as like a ray gun, but anything that's caught within that ray,
so you can dodge it.
Yeah. It is pretty cool. And it was also, I think, one of the first appearances of Monsieur Mallah and the Brain, the gorilla and the Brain characters who have been in many prominent Doom Patrol comics as of late. And it's just an interesting book because there's also this weird like family dynamic where it's definitely you definitely get the impression that maybe the Negative Man has a crush on Rita Farr and that it might be mutual, but then it's Cliff who wants to hook up Rita with normal men because they don't see her as a freak because she looks pretty normal in comparison to them. So that was pretty interesting. Then there's also an arc where people do not know where the Chief comes from or how he started off as like a scientist who who lost the use of his legs. So the Chief actually has like a series of multiple backgrounds and origin stories just to fool his enemies. And the one that people that got like the characters in the issue all tripped up is the one where Dr. Niles Calder is actually a space alien sent from like another planet to try to like steal Earth's technology and take over the world type of stuff. So that was just hilarious. And I recently finished reading the first omnibus, so about 500 pages of Doom Patrol stories. And yeah, those are some of the highlights for me.
Yeah, older comic books are a trip. I've read Green Lantern. I've been reading Green Lantern and The Flash and Justice Society and a whole bunch of other ones, and it's just like it's weird. It's just like some of the ideas and just like some of the the way people speak, and it's just very strange. It's like an entirely different language sometimes.
Do you ever wish that newer comic books would have the narration, that little like all that text that kind of goes on the top of the
in
page
an
sometimes?
instant he bends the steel like a wet noodle, like that kind of stuff?
Yeah.
I think if you do it right in like little spurts, it might be really cool.
Oh yeah, Spawn is full of it.
Really?
Yeah, Spawn is full of the narrations.
I wouldn't have expected that. Yeah,
and the narrations, there's times where I'm like, oh, that's nice, and there's times where I'm just like, please go away.
Yeah, it's the same. I think it's the same way that I feel about like the inner monologue, like the whole "My name is Barry Allen and I'm the fastest man alive." It's annoying. It gets very annoying very quickly if the author doesn't really know how to do it right. If he doesn't really know how to give the character a voice. Some people do it really well, like Mark Waid. I've running a lot.
There are a lot who use it very well. I think someone might disagree with me, but Ultimate Spider-Man era Bendis, I think, uses inner monologues really well.
Yeah, I agree.
Because I love it, because Spider-Man will be saying something and he'll be like fighting someone and he'll be like, he's like, I got this, is too easy, and just the inner monologue is just fuck. He'll just be screaming like terrified.
Jeff Loeb does it really well in Hush. Like the whole you just see the analytical side of the Batman, like just like from the immediate opening, like you see how he calculates everything, how he plans everything out. It's really, really smartly done. It makes it feel even more like a detective's serial or whatever. So yeah, I mean, there are a few people that do it really well. There are a lot of people that don't do it well at all.
Personally, for a while,
like the theatrical cut of Blade Runner. The theatrical cut of Blade Runner doesn't use it very well.
I can't remember Blade Runner. It's been too long.
It's the case of, because this is the thing that happens with Spawn, where it's like it's explaining things that you can pretty much just see.
Yeah.
Like in Blade Runner, when I think his name is Roy, the replicant, when he saves Decker at the end, and like you could clearly see on his face, he's just like, "Why the hell did you save me?" You see that face, and you just hear the narration, "I don't know why he saved me," and it's like, come on. But like that's also with Spawn. It's like there's a part where Spawn like aims a gun at the Violator's head and like blows his head off, and the narration is basically he blows his head off.
Very on the nose.
It's like making it more descriptive, where it's more like bits of his flesh vomited from the back of his neck, where it's just like, okay, that's a bit more visceral, but also it's right in front of us.
Yeah.
Wow. That's pretty cool. Manta, since you've been kind of talking for a little bit, were there any other books maybe not from DC or not from the Rebirth era that you've been catching up on or rereading?
So I read, I got caught up with Daredevil and Defenders. There's a short little Defenders series that was really good. And also The Amazing Spider-Man. I suffered through Dan Slott's run. I guess an idiot.
You mean the Superior Spider-Man?
No. Just like the little run between Superior and whenever the next author took over.
You mean when he turns Black Cat into like a crime boss?
Yeah, and Peter's running his own company, and Spider-Man's his bodyguard, and what?
Wasn't that called Big Time? The name of the arc when he runs his own company.
I don't know.
I think it's actually a separate arc.
Okay, but it was post Superior Spider-Man, right? When Peter Parker goes back into his
body.
body. Yeah.
So
because the industry was set up by Otto Octavius when he was in Peter's body.
Yeah, and Otto is like a robot stuck in the robot's body, and he has the hots for the midget.
Mm-hmm. Anna Maria, I remember her.
It sounds like a freaking joke when I say it out loud.
Yeah, it's like I'm just listening to this. I'm like, man, I love how comics have made it so disgusting. This sounds like it's normal. No. That was back from when Doc Ock made the company while he was inside another person's body, and like, so, like that will suddenly make sense. Like Neo will hear that and he'll be like, "Oh, now I get it."
Yeah,
I get it. I've actually read Superior Spider-Man, and I stopped right after Otto Octavius lost Peter's body, because I was just like, "What's the point of reading the book anymore if I can't have a laugh at every time Otto thinks about like Peter's life, he's just like, wait a minute, why doesn't he have a doctorate degree? I cannot go on without at least a doctorate. Time to go through school again. Oh, the teacher caught me for plagiarizing my own work as Otto Octavius.
Right? It's just like, wow.
Mm-hmm.
But it's just, it's weird that they would keep a guy who clearly doesn't really like Peter Parker writing Peter Parker.
And then they got him to write the Spider-Man game.
Ugh. Did they?
They did.
The next one?
No, the one that's out, the Insomniac one.
He wrote that?
Yeah, he wrote it. And you know how you can tell? Do you know how you can tell?
How?
Because Doc Ock is the main villain.
Yeah.
And Doc Ock is easily the most fleshed out villain in the entire game. That's how you can tell. And the fact that Doc Ock looks like Dan Slott.
Really?
There aren't many Doc Ock iterations where he's growing bald. They usually give him a bowl cut.
Yeah, that's not flattering at all.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, it's because it looks like Dan Slott, who loves Doc Ock.
That's gross. I mean, holy crap. I immediately hold the PlayStation 4 game as one of the best pieces of media concerning, related to Spider-Man ever.
Yeah, he wrote it.
That's really bizarre because his run really was not great. I won't say it sucked, but it just wasn't... I don't know. It didn't feel like Peter a lot of the time, and he just is like this petulant child. Where he's fighting with Iron Man.
I am looking more into it to make sure I'm not absolutely wrong.
Yeah, maybe he advised on it. I don't know.
He provided additional story contributions. That's
he
what
wasn't the
Wikipedia
full
says.
Co-writer of the Spider-Man game. Apparently, it was Christos Gage. He's another comic book writer who's
he's the co-writer. And then Dan Slott provided additional story contributions, which I'm assuming are all make Doc Ock do this.
So he's basically an executive producer. He just said, put Doc Ock in it.
Make Doc Ock do this. Do this and this and this, but only for Doc Ock.
So that makes more sense.
Yeah, apparently the lead writer was John Paquette. I'm not familiar with the name, but at least according to Wikipedia, he's also written other Insomniac games, including Sunset Overdrive and Resistance series, and the Resistance games.
Never heard of them.
It's pretty interesting. I've actually never played the Spider-Man game, but would you guys recommend it?
Fuck!
Absolutely.
Okay.
Like I said, it's one of the best pieces of Spider-Man media ever created.
Okay.
I hold it as the best Spider-Man movie because it's written out and it plays like a movie.
Few things it does story-wise that I'm not a fan of, but this podcast isn't about that, the game.
Yeah. But yeah, there are some quibbles with it, but it's freaking brilliant as far as I'm concerned.
Well, next time it goes on sale on PS4, I'll definitely pick it up. I think it's gone down in price to $20.
It was on sale for the entire fucking spring.
I missed out on that. That's my bad.
Yeah, I got my friend to she borrowed my PlayStation 4 because she's a big fan of comic books and I hyped it up, and now she went out and bought a PS4 of her own.
That's cool.
All I'm reminded of is we convinced one of my friends to play it, and he really didn't want to play it because he's just not into superheroes. And we're like, come on, play it. So he proceeded to play the entire game without swinging. So he walked to all the missions, and I'm not kidding you. We were just like, dude, swing. He's just like, no. I think this is a relaxing pace to go at it, don't you think? And we're just like, we're gonna fucking kill you. And he's just like, yeah, if you kill me, I won't have to play the game anymore.
Okay, that's.
He did start to enjoy it, but he kept on walking because he knew it pissed us off.
That's the nice thing about video games is that people can find all sorts of different ways to play the game that maybe the developers hadn't had in mind. So if a guy wants to basically walk around and not swing, I guess the game is able to let you do that.
You can only get so far before it's actually essential, but he just never got that far.
Yeah, and Spider-Man is a good book. I don't know, Amanda, have you read any of the more recent run? I believe it's Nick Spencer who's writing.
The what?
Have you read any of the Spider-Man books after Dan Slott's run? I believe it's Nick Spencer who's writing it right now.
Yeah, so I've started into it, and then I got distracted with a bunch of DC titles.
Nice.
Because I had just read 50 issues of Spider-Man and wanted a break. But I did get far enough to see Peter and Mary Jane get back together, which is amazing. Screw you, Dan Slott.
That wasn't Dan Slott's fault, though. That was J. Michael Straczynski when he was editorially mandated to do the deal with Mephisto.
Yeah, but
there was Carly
Slott,
though.
Slott was he wrote
Carly
Mary
Cooper
Jane so poorly. Like Mary Jane is like I hate to say it, but she's an actual she's like a bitch. She's just like she's always like just like really snotty with Peter for like no reason. She's just like completely out of character. So it's nice to see. I mean, it's like, Clark Kent and Lois Lane. They need to be together. They need each other. It's not really Spider-Man without Mary Jane.
It should be Black Cat.
I love Black Cat, but Mary Jane and Peter belong together.
Hank, after Spawn and Batman, what other books have you been reading? Maybe not necessarily from DC.
I think all of the I did for it was sort of just a brush up on it. So I reread Spider-Man, which was the first crossover with 616, Peter Parker, and Miles Morales. And I reread it because I like Mysterio, and he is the main villain in that.
Oh, cool.
Though I read it, and again, it was another case of I read it years ago, and then I read it again. I'm like, how the fuck does that work? Because the way Ultimate Mysterio works is he uses hallucinogenics and other stuff like that. But then in the comic, Spider-Man's being grabbed by things and thrown around, and it's like, okay, I can understand hallucinogenics, but how the hell is this working? I guess it's it's similar to the episode of Teen Titans where Robin hallucinates Slade or something like that. I don't know.
Okay.
I don't even remember what the reasoning was in that episode either.
So what got you into reading Spider-Man again? Was it just the connection maybe to Spider-Verse, or?
No, it was Mysterio.
It's just mostly because of Mysterio?
It was mostly Mysterio.
Nice.
Well, part of it was because one of the characters I wanted to write, I had based loosely off of Ultimate Mysterio. I'm just like, okay, I want to get back. I want to remember how this character was kind of written and how he speaks and how he conducts himself. And so I read Spider-Man, and I also reread the arcs of Ultimate Spider-Man where Ultimate Mysterio shows up. And Ultimate Mysterio's an asshole. Because he's kind of like someone who's just who will, while he's talking about his evil plan, he'll start going through your pantry and start pulling out your food and start eating it. That's sort of the vibe I get from him.
Sorry, I wasn't. What are you talking about? I'm texting and then I'm arguing on Twitter with people over whether Superman should wear his underwear on the outside of his suit.
No, that debate again. I don't know why that keeps popping up.
I think he should just not wear anything.
Why can't we just let him progress a little bit like Batman? People don't wet themselves over Batman ditching the underwear.
I'll never understand the affection for the shorts or the outer underwear.
It's so stupid.
And I could see the dislike bar just completely.
You know what? All of you nostalgia loving dickheads can suck it. It's so stupid. It's so antiquated.
The opinions of Manta.
He looks like an idiot.
The opinions of Manta do not necessarily reflect all of the opinions of the people on this podcast.
No,
though in this case, I kind of have to agree.
It reflects all the opinions that matter.
That's true. Okay, I agree with you, Manta. I'm not a big fan of the Trunks either. It was nice for the time that they came out in, but right now there's no reason to. There's no logical or story reason why Superman needs the Trunks.
They should go the Condiment King route and make him wear actual underwear on the outside, just plain old tighty-whities on the outside.
At the beginning of Action Comics, him and John are walking through a jungle, and John's like, "Why did you used to wear your underwear on the outside of your uniform, Dad?" And he's like, Clark has no reasonable answer. He's just like, "Oh, it was just part of the design." There's no legitimate answer to it. And his son is just sitting there making fun of him for it. It's just
All right, let's shift the conversation away from
I'm
superheroes.
I'm gonna create a character whose sole like point is to wear underwear on the outside. It's gonna be reverse Captain Underpants. I'm gonna sneak into your room tonight and sing the Captain Underpants theme song.
I did not know there's a theme song.
Yeah, it's sung by Weird Al.
Of course it is.
Oh, okay. It's pretty cool. Let's move away from superheroes who don't necessarily have to have be wearing outerwear and talk about superheroes who kind of do or not necessarily do not have to wear underwear, and that's the other series I've been reading. And I know you guys have heard of My Hero Academia. Are you guys big fans of the shonen series? Did you know that they have a spin-off series called My Hero Academia Vigilantes, which kind of works
I don't read it, but I knew.
As a spin-off, but also as a prequel to the events of My Hero Academia, because you meet characters who are not necessarily major players in the main series, but here they're kind of given more prominence because this is before Midoriya gets the all-for-one ability, and I'm pretty sure it's set years before, and it's set around these characters who do not go through UA to become heroes, but are actually considered vigilantes because they utilize their quirks and powers to save people without going through like regulations or joining a superhero agency, which I think is pretty interesting. And
I think the most interesting part of that is they confirmed that the Justice League fucking existed at some point.
Mm-hmm.
I have not seen that.
So the premise is that there's this one like dropout college student. His quirk is that if he has
he's able to slide.
Yeah, he's able to slide. As long as he has like 3 of his limbs touching a flat surface, he can basically slide around like a bug, kind of. So he calls himself the Crawler.
That's
and it's
so
interesting
gay.
because much like Midoriya,
like that's the point, is that the quirks suck and they can't do anything with them.
Their
but they want to be heroes anyway.
But Horikoshi just like excels at that.
Because the society of My Hero Academia is like genuinely fucked up if you think about it.
It is.
Well, no, the idea is that people who aren't necessarily heroes, they shouldn't be using their quirks in public. They have this whole like law and regulation where people who do use their quirks are they're kind of shunned, or they almost get arrested essentially. And a lot of the series revolves around these characters who either wittingly or unwittingly are forced to unleash their quirks against other people, and these vigilante characters are trying to essentially stop them while also gaining the approval of the actual authorities and some of the actual heroes who are present within the story itself. So I just think it's interesting because these characters who you meet, they don't have like especially good powers. One of them doesn't even have a quirk. He's just a badass. And right now where I'm at, it's gone a little convoluted because now you start realizing all these characters are related to some way or the other, and there's a lot of like shonen
they Sony'd it.
Magazine like tropes of like, this person was my father all along, or this person was my brother, or this person was actually related to this other character. It's just it gets a little bit crazy at times, but I don't know. I think it's worth reading.
I've never understood that trope
of characters being secretly related to each other.
Make everything. Well, it's the need to make things interconnected, because it's, on one hand it's cool, but on the other hand it makes your world feel smaller.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah,
and like that's something I feel that like a lot of movies that want like a bigger universe like fall apart on, is they're just like, oh, we're gonna have these characters, but they're all gonna be interconnected. It's like, no, that's what keeps it from feeling big.
Yep.
Yeah, it's mostly just to add drama and to like create these like big plot twist that leaves people's jaws gaping, but at the same time it just feels so cheap because sometimes the build up to those reveals aren't very well explained, or they just kind of come out of nowhere, or they would have been better established had there been more chapters explaining why these two characters were all of a sudden related to each other. So it's weird. It's still a good series. I don't think the art is as good as Hoshikori's art for My Hero Academia, but it's sufficient and it's pretty similar, just not as good.
I will say that, like, I'm not sure where you guys are in the main series.
I'm caught up.
I'm caught up, yeah.
I'm absolutely caught up.
Okay, so I haven't caught up yet. I was caught up, and then so I let it get ahead for a while. But I am not a fan of spoilers.
By the way, these are major spoilers.
Yeah.
Just on how fucking far it gets ahead. Anyone who's listening in and doesn't want to be spoiled, it does get to the point where there is an absolute point of no return.
Yeah, I mean, so I'm not a fan of Midoriya inheriting more abilities, like the Black Whip thingy.
I have an odd relationship with it.
How do you mean?
Because on one hand, I feel like it sort of makes it more special, but on the other hand, the Black Whip feels really stupid.
It does.
For me, it's like I just don't like the Black Whip. It feels like such a weird power to add on.
I mean, it just feels weird in general to add on a different power because he hasn't even, mastered the one that he has, and there's so many different applications that he can use for the super strength.
Well, for me, it's like if Spider-Man was suddenly able to fly.
Yeah, it's just
where it's just like,
it's
wait,
so
that doesn't work with the theme. That doesn't work because they I'm gonna go even more spoilers, but I'm pretty sure we're all caught up. But this is again with the audience. Is that like one of the next? That like one of the next? That's as far as you are.
Does the villain run come after or before that?
You mean where they try to infiltrate the villain's base?
Are you talking about the League of Villains centric arc, or
yeah?
I forget if this is right before it or right after it, but it's basically reveal what like the next power he's supposed to inherit is. And like when they talk about this one, I'm like, okay, no, that would make sense. And we're basically bringing up that the next quirk that he's meant to inherit is float, so it's basically flying.
Huh.
So he is at some point basically going to actually turn into Superman.
Ugh.
Or something like that. But like the Black Whips is just like, it's such a weird power.
It's very disconnected.
It's so weird.
I think it's weird that All Might never utilizes any of these powers that are suddenly explored within Midoriya.
Well, that's what I was bringing, is that it makes Midoriya a bit more special in that Midoriya has the potential to actually use them.
Or something. I don't know. He doesn't need to be more special. I mean, he can be, All Might doesn't need all the other stuff to be as special as he is. No one else needs like 50 quirks to be, amazing.
All for One did.
How do you mean? What do you mean?
Are you talking about One for All or All for One?
All for One, the character, because that was literally his power. Literally, his power is to have a fuck ton of quirks.
Mm-hmm.
But at the same time, like he uses, I don't know. It works for him though. I don't know. It's just I don't mind it with him. With him being just like the top villain, I don't mind.
I feel like what would make this better is if he was going to unlock quirks, if they were ones that felt thematically relevant.
Yeah.
Where stuff like it's like story wise and theme wise, it makes sense that he would unlock this power. Like it may be like, okay, well that's convenient, but it's also like, no, he's at that point of his journey that if he was to gain any new power, it would be this one.
Yeah.
And that's what sort of makes the Black Whip feel so weird. Just like, okay, what are you trying to say with this power now?
Yeah. Yeah.
It's like, what does this power do? It's like, why did he need this power now?
Yeah, yeah.
Mm-hmm.
I think it just bothers me just because he doesn't need more than what he already has. He already has like the greatest hero's power. And there's so many applications that they haven't even touched on. I mean, like, for example, shoot style. That was a really cool application. That is a really cool way to, kind of make Midoriya different from All Might. And just thinking about like how he could learn boxing or Muay Thai or something, just give him more style. Not more substance, I guess, if that makes any sense. There's just so many different applications that you can do to make Midoriya awesome, and he doesn't need more abilities. Yeah. It just like, I don't know. It's like, does he become the greatest hero because he has every freaking quirk covered? Like, every major quirk covered?
Yeah.
Or is it just because he has, a certain skill set and he used it and became the best? it's kind of just like with Superman, it's a little bit boring that he has like 5 billion different powers. One author will have him using 50 different kinds of vision-centered powers. It's just like, it just seems more, it's more epic when you have a limited skill set, but you utilize
and you're able to make it work.
Yeah.
Well, and the thing that ticks me off with that is Horikoshi makes that work. Like, a lot of the characters have these quirks that should not be as effective as they are. Like, Rappa. Like, Rappa's quirk is literally that he can move his shoulders faster. And basically he turned that into, I'm going to have the strongest rushdown attack in the entire series.
Right?
Mm-hmm.
Like,
and stuff like that.
Freaking earphone jacks. That's such a weird ability, but it works. It's awesome.
Fucking permeation.
Permeation, yeah.
Oh yeah, permeation.
Freaking Mirio was the most OP mother effer ever, and his thing is basically more of a.
They literally in universe nerfed Mirio because he was too unstoppable.
Right? Like his quirk was so. It wasn't even like, it's not even like a superpower. It's more of like a super handicap, and yet he is the most OP dude ever. It's just like, less is more.
Well, I'm happy to tell you guys that if you read MHA Vigilantes, the main character kind of goes through a similar evolution where he utilizes those crawling powers and is able to kind of evolve them to do different things too. So that's another reason.
And then he unlocks more quirks.
He
doesn't unlock more quirks. He unlocks better ways to use that crawling power. So.
And then he's able to fly and get super strength.
You're not far off, actually.
Oh, motherfucker.
But yeah, you're totally right, though. Horikoshi is just like, his superpower is making insignificant superpowers awesome. I mean, Hawks, you'd expect him just to be a guy who can just fly.
Well, I think that's more of a thing that just manga and anime are able to do. Because the other thing I have been revisiting was JoJo's Bizarre Adventure. My God, is every superpower so goddamn specific. It is so ridiculously specific that you're just like... That's what I love about JoJo is, like, if anyone in real life got these powers, they'd be like, what the fuck do I do with this? It's just like, what do you do when you're suddenly given the power of... When you are able to tell that people are afraid, you can fold them into paper.
Wait, what?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, that's from part 4. If you are able to tell that someone's afraid,
then you can fold them into paper.
You can fold them into paper.
Someone's dropping acid and then just like putting this to paper.
I've always been fond of the one where if there's a character, I think they're like a two brothers duel. One of them has the ability to like write on a comic book, and whatever they write comes true.
Well, yeah, it's Oingo and Boingo, who are not a copyright breach.
There's a lot of characters in that series who are definitely copyright breaches or very good parody.
There are so many characters,
musicians and rock stars. It's a pretty crazy series, that's for sure. I don't know. Are there any other series that you guys have been reading lately that you want to bring up too? Because I've pretty much named all the ones I've been reading for the past few months.
There was one more, and I had to bring it up because it's just like I mentioned this yesterday, but it was just such an like perfect accident. Was I had recently finished my collection of G.F. John's run on Justice League because the last volume I needed arrived yesterday, so I read through it again. And as I was reading it, I remembered. I went like, oh yeah, this is the volume that has the Amazovirus arc. This has the arc where the U.S. goes into a quarantine and the Justice League have to wear masks. You know, this whole story that's just needlessly relevant. Needlessly depressing to read right now. Seeing superheroes hooked up to IVs because they've been infected.
It's too poignant today. Yeah.
Yeah, it's just like, God damn it!
It's too relevant now.
I'm so glad this is the arc I started rereading.
You said that was Jeff Johns?
Yeah, Jeff Johns.
What a dick.
I think that's a good place to end today's episode. So thank you guys so much for
just chorus in with the Looney Tunes theme. That's what you gotta do right after he says that.
Mm-hmm. Just add a Looney Tunes theme. I'll have to do that.
What a dick!
Sounds good. I gotta remember to add all those little things. And thank you so much, AngryBlackManta. Thank you so much, Hank. Are there any final thoughts or words that you kind of wanted to share with the audience that I guess we still have after all this time? Any helpful hints of advice?
I do have one. When you wear the fucking masks out in public, you have to put it over your nose, you fucking idiots. It doesn't work if you just cover your mouth, okay? Because I have seen at least 5 people in the past week that only cover their mouth, not their nose. You fucking inhale that shit, you stupid pieces of dumbass.
On that note, I'm going to vacuum my room because I've just been staring at my carpet for the last hour.
Leave the mic on when you do it.
And go get some frozen custard.
And that's fantastic. As for myself, I just wanted to say thank you all for listening to just kind of some more rambling thoughts, because right now in regards to comic book movies, there hasn't been really much going on. We haven't had the Black Widow movie come out. We don't have any progress on whatever's supposed to be filming around this time. We can definitely revisit some older movies.
That's the thing I have to say that I'm really hating is the fact that I'm getting these emails going here's a seminar from your school about dealing with the fact that you're graduating into recession. I have more problems than that because I'm a fucking film major and I graduated at a time when the industry is fucking dying.
It'll come back. It'll come back when
I graduated not into recession. I graduated into when my passion is on fucking life support.
You gotta find ways to innovate somehow.
So that's why I'm drawing
short films.
Yeah, whatever.
You can make landscape movies with nobody in them. Everyone talks
practice your shots. All right, I want to get back to Murdoch Mysteries.
Alrighty, thank you so much, guys, for listening. Please, I'm gonna remember this. Feel free to subscribe.